Schaefer looked at over 200 archaeological sites in the Middle East. Each site contained 5 destruction layers, each layer containing a dead civilization. Schaefer's study of these great cataclysmic events enabled him to come to some startling conclusions. I'll read his words. These great crises will better explain the historical development of the most ancient civilizations, and they will definitely take out of the hands of man the command of the great historical happenings we thought he possessed. He struggled to find the causative agent, the mechanism behind this. But there was a man who, with his new scientific theories, could. Let me introduce you to Emanuel Velikovsky, a man who caused incredible controversy in his time. In the 1950s, he wrote a book called Worlds in Collision, which had as its main theme the cataclysmic destruction on Earth caused by planets in our solar system. He believed that mythology and legend should be interpreted literally. Velikovsky proposed that many myths and traditions of ancient peoples are based on actual events. Worldwide global catastrophes of a celestial origin actually had profound effects on the lives, beliefs and writings of early mankind. Professor Emilio Spedicato of the University of Bergamo says, "Worlds in Collision is a book of wars in the celestial sphere that took place in historical times. In these wars, the planet Earth participated too. The historical cosmological story of this book is based on the evidence of historical texts of many people around the globe, on classical literature, on epics of the northern races, on sacred books of the peoples of the Orient and Occident, on traditions and folklore of primitive peoples, on old astronomical inscriptions and charts, on archaeological finds, and also on geological and paleontological material." After reaching #1 on the world's bestseller list, Velikovsky's Worlds in Collision was banned from a number of academic institutions. It created an unprecedented scientific debacle known as the Velikovsky Affair. In 1956, Velikovsky wrote a sequel, Earth in Upheaval, to present conclusive geological evidence for terrestrial catastrophism. He wrote, "I've excluded from these pages all references to ancient literature, traditions and folklore, and this I've done with intent, so that careless critics cannot decry the entire work as tales and legends. Stones and bones are the only witness." However, for 40 years, these highly controversial theories were to remain an anathema to the academic world. Then in June 1994, an event occurred that was to radically change scientific thought and give credibility to Velikovsky's ideas. Myth and legend, once dismissed, had to be re-examined. What was this catastrophic event? In June 1994, a rogue comet, Shoemaker-Levy 9, approached Jupiter. Observers on Earth soon realised that it was on a collision course. But what happened next was totally unexpected. Without warning, it split into 23 large pieces. Then one by one, these pieces plummeted into Jupiter, the largest planet in the solar system. Well above the surface of Jupiter, it flashed and discharged and then plummeted into the huge planet. Each destruction site was the size of Earth. The effects persisted for months afterwards. Simultaneously, a transparent gas cloud was released that enveloped the planet. For the first time, modern man had witnessed a comet collide with a planet. What was thought to be a stable solar system was now a place where the unexpected could happen. Could this have occurred on Earth? Had mankind actually witnessed such an event? Could it happen to Earth in the future? No one could now deny any of these possibilities. Ancient mythology is all about war between the planets in the plasma of space. Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter and Saturn wandered from their courses and produced great plasma discharges in the form of interplanetary thunderbolts. Earth too was involved in this war, and great destructions occurred amongst mankind. Well, do we have evidence that thunderbolts in fact struck Earth in earlier epochs of mankind?
There seems to have been a period of chaos in the solar system when cosmic lightning changed from one distinctive configuration to another. Now, these patterns have been observed in recent years in high-energy plasma labs. They've also been seen in deep space. They're not the puny sparks that we call lightning today. There is no scientific method of interpreting myth. That's fallen to a few adventurous scholars in comparative mythology who have taken the trouble to learn about plasma discharge phenomena. With this forensic approach, it gives us great confidence that we are able to understand what it is that the ancient myth makers were trying to tell us. Throughout the world, our prehistoric ancestors put in a prodigious amount of energy into carving the thunderbolts of the gods, as they were called, into rock faces. It doesn't matter where you look, whether it's in the Americas, in Australia, in Europe, in Asia, the same patterns are to be seen. And most importantly, those patterns are reproduced in the highest energy electrical discharges on Earth in plasma laboratories. Those same images are also produced by computer modelling of those high energy plasma discharges. It's been said that extraordinary theories require extraordinary evidence. Well, we have that extraordinary evidence.
Velikovsky's work has inspired a new generation of scientists to examine new models for the universe. Will these ideas reinforce what mythology has been telling us all along? Could Baalbek be the scene of an interplanetary event? Was Velikovsky right? But what's your view on Velikovsky's books?
Well, I think he nailed some important truths. To begin with, his idea that planetary catastrophes had occurred in the past and had shaped both the Earth and mankind. The other one was he threw down the gauntlet to astronomers when he said that the solar system had an electromagnetic nature as well as gravitational. In fact, the only scientist of note to pick up that gauntlet, I think, was Einstein just before his death, because he became interested and discussed with Velikovsky.
Yes, I read they had great arguments over this in the living room, apparently.
Yes, yes, to the extent that Einstein was ready to submit proposals for experiments to be done to try and verify Velikovsky's view.
So we've had to wait this time to see it verified.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, Einstein died at about the time when he was to submit the proposal, and of course it never happened. But he was very interested in the fact that Jupiter was found to emit radio noises, because that was one of Velikovsky's predictions.
And that was quite unexpected.
It was unexpected, yeah. Cosmology is supposed to be the queen of the sciences, yet its students are taught nothing about electrical activity in the universe. They go on to make the mistake of treating plasma like a heated gas, and they talk of the solar wind, for instance, and of shock fronts. Cosmologists need to rethink their ideas about gravity. If you look at our solar system, it's a complete fruit salad. The different characteristics of the planets, their tilts, their spins and their atmospheres, all belie the idea that this has been a natural progression from some simple beginning. And when NASA looks into deep space, we see things changing more rapidly than is expected on this kind of slow evolutionary picture. This belief in a Newtonian clockwork solar system, where what we see today in the skies you would have seen 4 billion years ago. But nothing could be further from the truth. The ancient skies would bear no resemblance at all to what we see today. In fact, I would guarantee that if any of us were transplanted back in time, if that were possible, that we would be frightened out of our wits. We're at the Tidbinbilla Deep Space Tracking Centre just outside Canberra, It's one of 3 tracking stations used by the Deep Space Tracking Network. In the world there is one in Spain, one in Goldstone, California, and one here in Australia at Canberra. Radio telescopes are the means by which we can now trace the electrical nature of the universe, because they are able to measure the magnetic fields in deep space, and it has been found that these magnetic fields are strung between galaxies. They thread through galaxies and they surround the stars in galaxies.
The electric universe model is based on the idea that there is a giant electromagnetic circuit connecting stars, planets and galaxies. The Earth, via its magnetosphere, is connected to the Sun, which in turn is connected to the other stars.
The idea of electrical activity in the cosmos flies in the face of cosmology, which relies on a gravitation-only model. This is despite the fact that NASA finds evidence day by day that gravity cannot explain. The electric force is 1,000 billion, 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 billion times stronger than gravity. It's always been a puzzle to geologists where the energy of an earthquake comes from. The energy comes from the stored electric charge within the Earth. A discharge takes place beneath the Earth, then you must get effects on the surface that are felt. And the earthquake is one such consequence.
Right, so it's just like thunder and lightning, but it's beneath
It's underground,
the
yes. That also extends to volcanoes, because it's never been, it's just a story that we're told that you have these diapirs, as they're called, these molten blobs of magma rising through the rock above and finally coming out on the surface. It's much simpler to imagine that what is going on is a discharge from within the Earth, an electrical discharge to the surface of the Earth. And quite often lightning has been observed above a newly forming volcano.
Yes.
And also some of the most spectacular lightning discharges ever seen
Above volcanoes.
are above volcanoes, yes.
And also, didn't you tell me before earthquakes or large ones, they're detecting large electric currents?
Yes, yeah, they've detected all kinds of electrical effects, including magnetic effects too. And things like glows, discharges above ground, and animals seem to pick up on this changed electrical environment.
What about present day lightning? Now, I think the physicists used to think it was confined to a cloud bank and was part of that.
Yes.
But now you say they're discovering sprites and other electrical formations right up in the ionosphere.
Effectively, the discharges extend to space, and from there beyond to the magnetosphere, which then begs the question, where is this electric current going to or coming from? And the answer is it's coming from the solar circuit. In other words, the sun is a part of a giant electrical circuit within its part of the galaxy.
So we have, let's say you've got the sun, then a connection there with
The sprites, gnomes and elves.
and they're in gradual transformation down to the cloud level, then you get this
That's right.
earthing, I guess is the word.
Yes, all planets have this connection to the solar circuit, which means that they're accepting electrical charge from the sun. It was imagined initially that these strange lightnings above storms were coming from the storm below, but the evidence is all in favour of the fact that the electrical energy is already sitting up there in the ionosphere waiting to get to Earth, and it just comes down through these various things, the elves, the gnomes, the sprites, all of these whimsical names given to things that are not understood. Now, once the charge gets to the thundercloud, the electricity is distributed in the thundercloud, and then it is discharged to ground through the normal lightning bolts or through tornadoes. Tornadoes are in effect a slow electric vortex.
Wallace and his colleagues believe we can trace the electrical nature of the universe primarily using radio telescopes. But even more evidence is coming forth with remote sensing X-ray imaging, super telescopes such as the Hubble and other remote sensing devices. But did our ancestors witness events that back up this theory? What were these thunderbolts of the gods? Now let's be clear. This was not ordinary lightning that you see from a thunderstorm. Anthony Pratt has recorded rock art pictures from all over the world. He believes these are representations of giant heaven-spanning events that mankind recorded, probably in fear. These were in the form of giant toruses spreading across the sky. They were formed in the plasma of space. As they discharged, they hurled huge thunderbolts down upon the earth, etching it in the form of craters and giant Lichtenberg rivulets spanning across the sphere of the earth. These were amazing, incredible events. The ancient mythology also backs up the fact that there was some cosmological events in our ancient past. But is there any other evidence? Wallace believes that interplanetary discharges and cratering on planets such as Mars and Mercury provide further evidence of the electrical nature of the universe.
Well, it's interesting, there was a long debate about 100 years ago about whether the craters on the moon were volcanic or whether they were due to impact. The geologists favoured the impact theory and the astronomers favoured the geological volcanic theory, as if each one wanted to be divorced from explaining in their own terms what was going on. And then in 1964, I think it was, there was a paper by an Englishman, Brian Ford, who had examined under a microscope the scarring caused in electric discharge machining.
Oh, okay. This is in the laboratory?
Yes, this is in the laboratory. And he found that the craters had central peaks in the kind of ratios you find on the moon. And in fact, the characteristic of an electrical crater is that it is very circular. Sometimes a corkscrew, it has corkscrew features as well, which is not something you would get from an impact.
Okay.
The other thing is it tends to have, if it's a large crater, it has a melted flat floor. It also tends to have terraces, steep walls and terraces. And some of the big craters on the moon have terraces with melted floors.
So to take that a little bit further, even the African Rift Valley going all up along next to the Red Sea, working up through the Dead Sea, the Sea of Galilee, even up to what we were discussing for Baalbek, with its mountain chain either side and landing in a central spot, would that possibly be an electrical phenomenon as well, do you think?
I would say definitely. I've visited some of the countryside there and it shows all the hallmarks of electrical scarring and etching.
So another phenomenon of Baalbek is it's right at the head of the Bekaa Valley and the Lebanon and the anti-Lebanon mountains each side of it, but it's on a flat little plateau, but flying away from it are two rivers. Is this probably a typical electrical phenomenon?
Yes, yeah. The feature of electrical scarring is that it tends to attach to high points. So wherever there's a high point is where you will tend to find the electrical scarring taking place. One of the classic examples of this is if you look at the moon and the number of small craters that are perched on the rims of larger craters. The large crater was formed by one thunderbolt, and then on a succeeding stroke it switched to the next highest point, which was on the rim of the the crater it's just formed. And when you look at the craters, they're all machined, they're beautifully clear. There's no debris, it hasn't wrecked the existing crater to produce the new one.
Okay, that's interesting.
So it's a machining effect, not a blast or impact effect.
And it's funny, I find the acropolises of the ancient world were often on high points.
Yes.
Which is quite curious. They thought this thunderbolt coming from the gods must have blessed or done something to this place to energise it.
Yes.
Very interesting.
There was a very strong drive to mimic what they had witnessed.
Today we see the Acropolis of Baalbek in ruins. Many civilizations have had their influence here. Our only definitive knowledge is from the time of the Romans, who rebuilt it around 100 AD under the emperors Nero and Trajan. They consulted it as an oracle. Let's take a closer look at the mythology of this era to see what insights we can gather about the ancient environment and the religious influences of the time. In these days it had 3 temples dedicated to 3 deities. Baal, king of the gods, we now recognise as the Roman god Jupiter. Secondly came Bacchus, also known as Mercury, was worshipped with full Bacchanalian rites. The third deity was the mysterious Athena, or as we now know her, Venus. These citizens were petrified of Baal, for he was god of the dark cloud, king of the gods. All these deities were sky gods or planets with real influence over the people's daily lives. Eventually these sky gods took on human forms and personalities.
These warring planets were the capricious gods of old. Mankind at once feared and worshipped them. Only a few thousand years ago, planets moved closely in the skies, producing huge electrical discharge phenomena which were regarded by the ancients with awe and terror.
In our next episode, we will see what the people did to appease these sky gods. Whether it be plague, famine, war or earthquake, they thought by their very actions they could control the gods.